Welcome to the World of Warcraft Class, Items, and Professions Q&A panel. Here to answer your questions are Greg Street, Chris Zierhut, Chris Kalecki, Ian Hazikostas, Jonathan LeCraft, and Owen Landgren.
It's Q&A time again. We love this every year. I'm going to go ahead and answer the first question, which I know will come up, which is, why do I hate paladins? And the truth is, a ret paladin killed my parents. It's very true. No, it's not true. Mom, Dad, if you're watching, I'm so sorry. But I know they're not watching, so they're like, what is it you do again for a living? I nerf paladins, of course. I know I'm mean to you guys, but man, you make it so easy. I guess we could pick on warlocks for a while instead, but... I don't know, man. Warlocks scare me. All right, enough of that silliness. This is the class and item team. It's not even all of them. We have a very large team. They're the best in the business, and I don't tell them that enough, so I'm saying it now. And I've been talking for hours here at Blizzcon, so I'm not going to do a lot of answering myself. I'll throw stuff to them, and let's see what you got.
All right, thank you, guys. Let's go. First question.
This question is about the shadow orbs for shadow priests. The wording on the new talents suggested they were going to a more resource-based paradigm, like holy power or something. Is that true, and will that change how they're spent and generated?
Yeah, that's kind of true. Like, we're still working out the details, but the idea is it would be kind of a secondary resource kind of mechanic, and try to get like all the RNG aspect out of it, and open it up to more abilities maybe. Like, the idea currently is that Mind Blast wouldn't have a mana cost. It would just cost Shadow Orbs. It would have no cooldown. So you would just build up the Shadow Orbs and use it. You know, the more Shadow Orbs you get, the more Mind Blast you'd be able to do. So that's the current thought process.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Hello, I have a question about the state of healing in PvP and PvP healing classes. Are you satisfied with the state of healing in PvP? The concept previously mentioned was triage healing. Healers would have to make tough choices about who they had to heal. People in PvP would spend 50% HP a lot of time at that state. Have you seen that, and are you satisfied with the way PvP healing has turned out, where I really don't think we've seen that borne out, and classes are still at either 100% or 0%?
You want to take that?
I would just say, I mean, balancing PvE and PvP PvE and PvP healing is just like a big challenge. And you're right that the idea was supposed to be more of a triage kind of thing. Bring it back to where it was like in vanilla and BC, to where it was more about like decision making and quick swapping and stuff, rather than just blowing someone up in quick GCDs and in burst. And I think we did get there in Cataclysm in the beginning, but it degenerates as the tier moves on, just because of how PvE and PvP mix together and how itemization scales. You saw in the last patch in 4.3 we like buffed Mortal Strike, which we really didn't want to do because we don't like how Mortal Strike, where there's certain comps with certain, like with rogues or warriors or whatever, that you just need to have someone with Mortal Strike. But we've also seen like certain comps where, I mean, today or yesterday with some of the tournaments or whatever, a lot of the comps are like double caster, like Mage Warlock or whatever. So you'll be able to bring back warriors and rogues and stuff, and you'll see them more in comps, I guess, after the change. But yeah, it's something we talk about all the time, and like I don't think we've, solved the problem yet, but it's something we're still working on. Cool.
Thank you.
Hi. My question is, I've noticed on the new tanking trees, like a lot of the active tanking, like debuffs, like Moralizing Roar or something showing up as talent. What's happening to those abilities, and how does it play into the active tanking model that you've been talking about?
So we decided to cut Demoralizing Shout and Demoralizing Roar altogether because it just felt like a maintenance-y buff that you just had to do every once in a while. It didn't have a lot of gameplay to it. It wasn't very interesting. It's just always up. And the Druid talent, Demoralizing Roar, in the new talent tree, it basically just stole the old name. It's not really, it had a different name, but since Demoralizing Roar was available, that was a better name, right? As far as the active tanking, it's more along the lines of what the Death Knight does, where you know you're low health and you Death Strike and you save it for those situations, building that kind of functionality into all of the tanking classes so that they use their resources to keep themselves alive instead of the resources to generate threat. So they have a role in keeping themselves alive instead of just trusting the healers to take care of them.
Thank you.
How you doing, gentlemen? My question is about classes that have like a cap on, say, 100 for a resource. Monk, Warrior, Death Knight, and Rogue. Currently, there are talents in the game to give you up to 130 of said resource. Are there any plans with the new talent trees to do that?
In the case of, with rogues, for example, it's something that currently fits nicely as an assassination niche because Mutilate costs so much more energy than the other builders. You want to have a larger energy pool to kind of make use of that. It also has obviously some PvP utility in terms of being able to line up more burst. One of the nice things, I think, it is an interesting knob to be able to play with. It's not something that fits very neatly into the current talent system as designed, though it might. They could be the sorts of bonuses that come back, though, in other forms, whether they're potential set bonuses or glyphs even, or it's just some passives that you get while leveling up. I think it's going to vary on a class-by-class basis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one with this situation, but I have 10 classes, one of each, and with the introduction of the Monk, are you guys going to consider adding an 11th slot so we don't have to get a new account for them?
Heard that question so many times at BlizzCon. Totally understandable. Obviously it comes up. We've talked a lot about it. We don't have a decision yet on how we want to handle that. We understand players want to have some more classes, more slots that can have a monk on their existing realm. One idea we've talked about, again, no promises, we don't know if we'll do this, is perhaps keeping the maximum cap on the number of characters you can have, but letting you distribute them on as many realms as you want. So you could have a lot of characters in one realm or something.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name, all right. So for event items like the Scourge Invasion, I was wondering if we can get those at bind on account for like transmogrification purposes for like Death Knights. And their Vengeful Armor, you guys pretty much made that impossible to get right now. I was wondering if we can get those back in with transmogrification because I want to have my Blue Onslaught and Red Lightbringer.
So that's something that we're definitely looking forward, at least towards making sure that all of the items that you remember from the good old days are available for transmogrification purposes. I'm happy you brought Vengeful up because that's actually something that we've done in 4.3. If you go out to Area 52 right now on the PTR, or, well, shortly on the PTR, there will be vendors that sell the old Gladiator gear to people who earned the higher rank achievements and sell the original Gladiator, Vengeful, and Brutal gear that you remember from back in the day and probably disenchanted or got rid of. The event items being bind on account is something that we could certainly look into in the future, but is a much bigger step because bind on account items are sort of expensive on our side and we have to be careful with how we use that technology.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, how's it going? 2 questions. I've been a druid since vanilla and a feral druid. We are able to equip 1 fist weapon, but not 2. Can we get some love on that? Especially since pandas are going to be able to dual fist. And, sorry, second question. As an enchanter, we never got any good drops throughout this expansion. Like we did in Oldor, we had 2 enchant drops that we can get for weapons. Are we going to get any new enchant drops? Just out of curiosity. And I love you.
So, the Druid class design is already 4 specs. It's kind of already over the place, and if you had to rework Cat and Bear so they could both dual wield and have a 2-hander as part of their design, it's just now we're ballooning up to 5 or 6 different playstyles in the class. It's just kind of out of control and unnecessary. We're expecting that monk tanks will be using a staff or polearm, and so the feral druid is going to share with the monk tank. But the monk DPS might be using dual fists or other dual wield weapons, and they'd be competing more with the rogues. So it's just they're going in a different direction from that. We've never really talked about making dual wielding druids. It just creates a lot more complexity. The class is already plenty complex.
As far as enchants that are going to be dropping in the next upcoming patches, we don't have any planned. We usually drop those when we feel there's something missing from the enchant spectrum, and it feels pretty solid right now. But in the future, we may just release those, more consistently, for something for enchanters.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi guys. I was wondering, since this next expansion coming out is going to be so faction focused, if we could see faction specific legendaries for maybe a shield like Might of the Alliance, or for a horde, Fist of the Horde, and just have them look completely badass.
So legendary items are something we very much look at on a case-by-case basis in terms of both the story that we're trying to tell with, for example, both Dragon Wrath and the Fangs of the Father. And if the story supports it and we find a cool, interesting item opportunity, that's certainly a possibility. That said, because of the work that goes into building those epic experiences, it's something that we'd have to think about very carefully. But everything is always possible.
I love the idea myself.
First off, I want to say that the new talent system looks awesome. I'm really looking forward to playing with it. And then I wanted to ask about Death Knight tanks. Right now, Death Knight tanks are in a really bad place. We've got problems with avoidance stats working against mastery, and then some other things, some of which have been temporarily fixed, like the change to Outbreak, which looks like it's going to get reverted in 5.0. And then we have our 2-piece tank set bonus, which is sort of based on our imminent demise, and this idea that we're constantly bouncing around low health, except that if tanks and healers are doing their job correctly, we shouldn't be that low, which means we don't have a set bonus. So I guess my question is, what are the changes you guys are looking at for fixing some of the problems with Death Knights, and can we get a new 2-piece set bonus, such as a heal that goes off when our shield breaks based on the size of our maximum shield that we generated?
Well, I mean, that's a potentially good set bonus. We might use that at some point. I think it's a cool idea. That doesn't mean the current one isn't functional also, however. Now, in terms of Death Knights as a whole, one of the problems they've had, and something we've heard continuously from Death Knights over the course of the expansion, is their susceptibility to spike damage. The nature of the Death Knight tank is that because of their self-healing and their wide array of survivability tools and timers, they actually do require less external healing than any of the other tanks. And so it's a careful balancing act in terms of making sure that they have some weaknesses, right? If you were both not susceptible to spikes and required less healing, then the Death Knight would simply be the best tank all around. Now that said, it's not acceptable really to go from 100% to 0 in a GCD or two. And we've tried, so some of the changes in 4.3 help with the survivability a little bit, remove some of the impediments to managing and juggling the different cooldowns and rune games that you have to do to maximize your survivability. One change that hasn't yet been announced, in the next 4.3 PTR build, the armor bonus from Blood Presence is going up from 30% to 55%. It's actually should be a decent survivability bonus. And beyond that, we are keeping an eye on things with an eye to the 4-3 raid encounters in particular. We're going to make sure that Death Knights aren't unfairly disadvantaged in any of the encounters. We don't think it's okay to just die in the blink of an eye. That said, part of the Death Knight experience is inherently about being brought really low and then doing awesome things to save yourself, right? And bring yourself back up from 20% to 100% with a couple of quick button presses. And that feels really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I was wondering about Eclipse. It's better than it's ever been, but there's still large periods of time where a balanced druid can be, really low on the damage, and then there's the problem of always sitting in solar when we need to do AoE. Is there anything you guys are planning on doing to address that? Possibly something like the Death Knight ability that generates a whole bunch of unholy power and all their runes?
So the first thing we're doing to address that, this is a 5.0 thing, not a 4.3 thing, is that Hurricane will have a new arcane version that will activate while you are on the other side of the Eclipse bar. So that while you're on that side, you have a good AoE for when you have the arcane Eclipse up, and you have a good AoE for while the nature Eclipse is up. And that will help to balance things a lot in terms of you're not like, I'm way over on one end and I want to be over on this end and I can't do what I need to do. But in general, the idea that sometimes you're really awesome damage because Eclipse active and other times you're low, that's the essential nature of the balance druid. If you don't like that, maybe something else might be a better choice. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi there. I have a question about Unholy Death Knights. Our minions don't inherit crit or mastery, and along with that, the gargoyles have a melee strike, which seems useless compared to the ranged attack, and I'm wondering if you have any plans to change either of those.
Sorry, could you repeat the second half of the question? I didn't catch that.
About the gargoyle, they have the melee attack, and the ranged is just so much better, so most people try and spin the gargoyle, so you avoid it altogether.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, the gargoyle is designed to primarily be ranged, and that's something that we can, I think, address on our end to make sure that it's using the strongest attack whenever possible. In terms of stat weightings, yeah, the Unholy Death Knight is probably one of the less successful specs in terms of our goal of making sure that all stats, all secondary stats are equally attractive. That's something that we don't have any short-term plans to currently address. One of the problems with drastically changing stat weights in the middle of an expansion is that it forces people to completely change around their current gear and their reforging and their gemming, and that can be very disruptive. So while the current situation isn't ideal, a heavily disruptive change might be even worse. However, looking ahead to 5.0, we're definitely going to work on making sure that there's greater parity between the value of the secondary stats.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I have been playing since vanilla, and one of my favorite items that I've used even a lot, even till today, is Noggin Fogger Elixir. And I was wondering why we still are not able to mount when shapeshifted as a skeleton.
Basic problem, our animation system does not have animations for all the costumes while you're mounted. And we decided to make a hard, fast rule. You're in some kind of transform, you can't mount. It was the only way to resolve literally hundreds of bugs. Was because we would get a situation where you're mounted in this transform that the animations just don't support properly. It looks stupid, it looks bad in the game. And we just don't feel we want the game to look like that. So we blocked that from existing. And to be fair, we blocked all the costumes instead of some, not others. To have a consistent rule. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm B Wild Spirit from Turleon. First, I'd like to say hello to my guild Evolution, my GMs, officers, and my 9 guild pally friends. You guys are awesome. This is more of a quality of life issue for healers, especially Holy Priests. But I've been a Holy Priest since March 2006, leveled all the way to 80, just Holy, with some discipline for increased DPS. Kata came out, that was nearly impossible, where it took me 10 minutes to do 10 extra minutes to do dailies. It took me hours longer. Is there any plan on making PvE solo more viable for priests, holy priests, and other healers? Or is the talent system change gonna answer that?
I would just say it's certainly a lot easier than it was like in vanilla, right? Like if you're a healer and you're doing dailies. I think it's just up to a certain extent to where if you're a healer and you're gemming and chanting for healing and whatnot, how close a DPS are you with like say a full, like a intended DPS spec like Shadow or something? And I mean, we also have dual spec now, whereas before you didn't. So I just don't know if that's like a huge priority to make, you know, holy DPS, you know, more competitive, I guess, if we're doing dailies.
Not so much competitive, but viable. I mean, I don't expect to go holy and pull out 20k DPS on Ragnaros. I mean, I could do that with Shadow. I have dual specs. I've done a raid night in all 3 specs. I'm just wondering if it could be more viable, and if you guys...
Well, holy also has a DPS chakra, too, that you could use that increases your damage. So, I mean, it's something we could talk about. I'm just not sure.
I mean, one of the dangers we have to keep in mind when we're trying to balance that is PvP, right? I mean, if healers can output DPS that is greater than a certain percentage of what a pure DPS class can, that can also cause potential imbalances, and so we have to be aware of that. In the meantime, obviously, as noted, being able to dual spec into DPS specs and also having much more hybridized gear for the hybrid casters should make it easier for everyone to be able to find something they can use to do their dailies.
Not to mention, a lot of the dailies are literally designed for somebody, regardless of what spec or class you are. And in some cases, like in the Firelands, there were dailies that were easier to do if you were a healer, because you had to heal an NPC that everybody else took a lot longer to do. It was easier for you to do. You could do it instantly. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm a rogue, so I just want to say first, thanks for the legendary. It's awesome.
Rogues represent.
You're welcome. So my question is regarding the new introduction of the Windwalker monk class, and also the formalization of cat druids as an official spec. With all these new melee DPS hybrids, what do you guys have planned to make sure that rogues are competitive as the only pure melee class, or we can't really bring some of the utility that, you know, a healer or an off-spec, you know, they can bring those abilities. What do you guys have planned for rogues to make sure that we're still bringing some utility?
Well, I think we've moved away from a model where being a pure meant that you simply, you know, did way more damage than everyone else, and that only hybrids brought utility. I think everyone brings a little bit of everything. Right now, some of the best reasons to bring a rogue, aside from their excellent top-tier melee damage, also include things like, you know, the ability to fan crippling poison onto a bunch of things, or excellent interrupts, or stuns. Those are things that are useful in a number of encounters and will continue to be useful in a number of encounters going forward, as well as, of course, in PvP. I think we're clearly going to try to maintain the rogue gameplay niche. You know, just because you have a monk class that has some maybe similar mechanics in terms of energy bar being melee, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be stealthy. They're not going to have rogue poisons. They're not going to have all the little tricks that make being a rogue awesome and make rogues rogues.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's up, guys? Just wanted to give a shout out to Superiority Complex on McTheridan. Love you guys. My question is about the new talent system. It looks like it's a lot of fun, but it still looks like it's going to be difficult to balance. It looks like it's still going to come down to somebody crunching the numbers, and some of the talents look like they're still going to come on top. And it looks very similar to the previous system of talents. You're going to have balance issues with that. So what do you guys think about that?
Most of the talents don't do any damage or any healing, so it's difficult for me to see where you could number crunch them. A lot of them are just qualitative things. Is it better for me to be able to teleport a short distance, or is it better for me to be able to run fast? It depends on the encounter, depends on the situation. I kind of disagree with that idea that they're all quantifiable or number crunchable in some way.
And there are some that do some damage, or where you can begin to make some of those comparisons. But currently, most of the numbers that are in there are obviously very far from final and are subject to balancing. And if anything, in some ways, it could be easier when we have a very limited decision set that we have to balance among, right? If everyone agrees that A and B are strictly superior to C, well, okay, what if we double the numbers on C? Okay, maybe now C is overpowered and it's too good. So then maybe there's a happy medium that we reach where suddenly that's actually a really hard choice, and people can't agree what the right answer is.
Thank you.
Hi there. First off, it's my second BlizzCon, and I just want to say that every time I've met you guys, it's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this. My first question is a quick follow-up to the Noggenfogger Elixir question. There's been other places where you get onto something and you lose a transformation, and then you gain it back, like pets, for example. Noggenfogger, why can't we do the same? Because it's just annoying to keep losing that charge.
So one of the things that really makes consumables fun is the fact that they are consumable. They do go away when, you know, you change, you get dispelled, stuff like that. So if they were just sort of permanent things that you kept around and you popped back and forth like you're zoning into a Caverns of Time dungeon, you're going to lose the impact of what a transformation really is. And certainly we've looked at ways of giving you warnings rather than just automatically dispelling it out when you try to mount up. But fundamentally, we want these transforms to be fun things that aren't just everywhere.
And to go with that, ideally, if you're in a transformation you can't have while mounted, ideally, instead of canceling a transformation you mount, you should say you can't do that while transformed or shapeshifted. Give you a red error message, and you want to mount? Fine, cancel it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've had my actual question.
It's up to you guys.
Sorry, it was a quick follow-up. So my actual question is the archaeology has been like ignored as far as I can tell, other than a few added things here and there. Are we going to see anything better with cooldowns, you know, not being so ridiculous on the vanity items? Are we going to see lower than max level items that have more variety? That kind of stuff.
The archaeology items are all over the place. My favorite one, I literally use every single time it comes up. I never let the thing drop, is the Vrykul helm, because I just like being bigger than everybody else. There's cool things like that, and they're not all long cooldowns. They're just all different and eclectic and all over the place and unpredictable, and that's cool.
As far as the skill itself, we're certainly looking at a lot of ways to sex it up and make it more fun and take out some of that grindy nature of it. I don't want to make any promises, but we've talked about, like, you know, a flare gun you can fire into the sky and a ladder drops down and just takes you to a random dig site. We've talked about random encounters that, you know, while you're digging, you know, so a mummy pops up and he's got, you know, 50 fragments on him or whatever. We've also talked about daily quests. You know, less excited about that one, but it could, you know, add to the spectrum again. So yeah, we're definitely looking at making some big changes, and you know, there you go.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Hi. One of my favorite things about tanking as a druid is the ability to go cat during tank swaps and do a sizable amount of DPS. With the talents being split in the next expansion, it seems like that might be a lot less viable. And I was wondering what your vision for the future of bear tanking was, if you're keeping some of the hybridization or moving us more towards what the plate tanks are doing right now.
You are definitely going to be losing that DPS. The other tanks can't do that. So there's a fundamental inequity there. I'm a prot warrior. I can't turn around and do good DPS as a prot warrior. Why can the Feral Druid do it? And that is actually fundamentally why the two specs are being broken apart. In the past, we kind of experimented with, there were hard talent choices where you couldn't get all the cat things and all the bear things, and it was still too easy to do both. So the final solution was, they're just two different specs. It's deliberate. Bears are not going to have rip or shred, but cats aren't going to have survival instinct, they aren't going to have frenzy regen, and that's going to make for important changes for both of them in PvE and PvP. Right? The cat druid is not going to put a huge rip on you and then go to a bear and watch you bleed to death. He's not going to be able to do that anymore because he won't have all that extra armor, won't do as much damage.
Thank you. I like that one. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Lasana from Restoken.
Resto Druids have a pretty decent single target rotation for healing, but when we AoE heal, we pretty much have gone back to mindlessly spamming Rejuve and Wild Growth, now with some Swiftman and Efflorescence mixed in. For the next expansion, are there plans to address our tool sets to give us more options than just sort of spamming hots around to mix in with our hots?
There is one new ability plan, which is an alternate version of the Wild Mushroom that you can detonate to heal people instead of doing damage, so Wild Mushroom Bloom. But not a lot's changing in the Resto Druid toolset, really. It's actually pretty damn good.
I would say like a lot of druids enjoy that kind of playstyle of just running around hotting and stuff. When we did try to like tone down their hots and try to incentivize them to use like Nourish and Healing Touch more, we got a lot of pushback there. And I think it's cool that some healers, you know, like a priest will chain cast Prayer of Healing or whatever and use circles healing and stuff. And a druid is more about like rolling hots on people. So there's a lot of different playstyles that you could choose. Whatever fits you, I guess.
And a quick follow-up, aside from the gameplay of using your Swiftman intelligently to make sure the efflorescence appears where you want it to, I think some of the healing playstyle that you describe is also on the shoulders of encounters and encounter design. That's something that we try to avoid, right? I mean, in most situations, it's not really just mindless AoE healing. There are some people who are taking more damage than others, who need more urgent healing than others, and so you're using a more diverse set of tools. Yes, in a world where the entire raid is literally taking a flat amount of damage on a regular basis, the right thing to do probably is just Rejuve and Wild Growth, but we try not to do that too much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, shake it out. Here we go. All right, you're on.
Hi, I'm Ariel from the Inconspicuous Bear. My question is about the 4-piece Tier 13 Feral bonus, specifically Bear. I know what you're trying to do and prevent cats from being able to get it as well as bears, but the problem is the restriction is, I would say, unfairly impacting on the bear's ability to provide utility to a raid. What are your thoughts on that?
So I work on designing most of the set bonuses, and the fundamental problem there is if that works for the cat spec druid, they will all be obligated to do that during the fight, and it would become a significant class balance issue. To the point where, if we didn't do something like that, we would just have to change the bonus completely. We can't have them being brought for that purpose. They're going to blow this cooldown for the whole raid. So we need to have some kind of safeguard in place to prevent that from becoming a problem. I think it's reasonable that you need to be 15 seconds in bear form before you can use it. And actually, it lasts long enough that you can literally swap to bear form, push the button, and people will start benefiting before because it lasts 20 seconds. I mean, you can actually get it in there. So that's a clarification.
Well, I just want to point out a couple things. One, it won't stop cats from doing it. And as for clarification on what you said regarding the bonus, if you pop Frenzied Regen before the 15-second window is over, when the 15-second window is over, it'll start kicking in?
Correct. So like if you pop it after you like 5 seconds in, you'll get part of the benefit of the set bonus.
Okay.
Once the 15 seconds wears off, it'll start working.
All right, fair enough. Cool, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Pyrio from Bonjour. Shout out to the Bads. My question is, are we getting new spells at like 86, 88, and 90? And if so, what are the mages?
So one of the things we've talked about, we're adding a lot of new spells just to fill out the talent trees. And at some point, we're going to bury players under so many new spells. We're trying to clean up their rotations. We don't want to add too many new things at the same time. One plan we've talked about is to introduce a new spell just at level 87, because then you turn around and get an exciting talent at level 90. Pretty sure we're not going to be able to come up with like 3 really cool, unique, fun spells that you must have along the way. And I can't tell you yet. You're asking about Mage. Yeah, we don't know yet what the Mage one would be.
I think a little bit of follow-up on that. In the past, we said we're going to have 5 new abilities or 3 new abilities for each class as they level up. And one of the consequences of that has been a lot of unnecessary abilities, adding unnecessary complexity to the classes. So feeling obligated we have to get X new abilities for every class, even if they don't need it, actually damages the design of the game. And right now we're finding ourselves cleaning up after some of that mess. So I think 1 new ability on the way up is probably the most you're going to see.
Well, and some classes, however, might get more than one new ability. It might just not. It might just be at level 60 or level 45. But to the extent that there are holes that are needed, that need to be filled in terms of what the class's capabilities are, we're going to fill them. But we're not going to just add new abilities just for the sake of doing so.
All right. Good plan. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, I was wondering, can we get some tank glove for a legendary ever?
It's certainly something that we're looking at. Legendaries are one of those things where, like I mentioned earlier, the story and the kit has to fit with what the item is going to be. It's not something where we just say, oh, well, it's time for a tank legendary, or it's time for a caster. We're not thinking about it in those terms. We're very much thinking about it in terms of how it fits into the story, how it really draws you into the game. And tanks have been a long time. Thunder Fury was very, very long ago. And so if there is an opportunity, it's certainly something that we're looking at.
Okay.
I'd love to see an orange shield, too. I think that'd be awesome.
There you go. Oh, that's it. I've got to get back in line, but thank you.
Hey, this question is regarding the Arcane Mage Mastery. When it was created, it created the possibility for really deep gameplay regarding managing your resource, where other classes, oh, I have mana, I'm just going to spend it all because I can't get rid of all of it. But we were promised this toolkit to manage our mana, and all we got really was Arcane Blast and clearing your Arcane Blast stacks, because Mana Gem and Evocation just became something that when all your cooldowns came up, you just popped it, dumped all your mana, evocated it full, and then just stood there and did whatever until Evocate came back up. So are we gonna get anything else to help us not be two-button wonders and make it deeper?
So one thing we've been looking at is we're not really happy with the role of Arcane Barrage right now, in that it doesn't really have a good place. And so we have some plans in mind to add a little bit more complexity to the Arcane design, make Arcane Barrage more meaningful and work better. But all the details will be coming out in the near future. But there are some significant plans to change around that. We considered putting it into patch 4.3, but decided it was better to wait to the expansion.
Yeah, it's the same deal with Arcane Missiles. I think it's less than ideal that in many cases you have this proc, you have a spell visual come up on your screen telling you something cool has procced, and the right thing to do is to ignore it most of the time. And you only push it like if you are trying to conserve mana. So we'd like to redesign things such that Arcane Missiles, Arcane Barrage, and Arcane Blast all have an equal and valid role as part of the Arcane rotation, which will add a lot of that complexity and nuance that I think you're looking for.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, this will be real quick. Can you allow Shadow Priests to have their Shadow Form Shroud removed while mounted? And only on the mounts.
Well, we have something slightly better than that. We have a new minor glyph of Shadow Form that is going to reduce the alpha on Shadow Form, so you can actually see your gear. You'll still be dark, but you'll actually see the textures on the items. And that's coming in 4.3.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That guy said thanks.
Okay, DK tier 13, question marks?
I've seen it. It's awesome, and you guys will see it soon.
Okay, so on a follow-up, what about like a 1 through DKs existed kind of a thing? Everybody can go back and get their tier gear, but DKs can only go back so far.
That's a much harder one. It's something that we would like to do, obviously, but it's expensive. Art takes a long time to make. Making it to the standard that you expect, that you see on your gear right now, is something that is really hard to do. And so, going back and going to the dungeons and such like that, I think that at least should tide you over until you get a bunch of new interesting stuff in 5.0.
Okay. Thank you.
I feel like I should qualify too, because I've gotten beat up before by using the expensive word. For us, it's a matter of budget, and if we ask for certain armor sets, we won't be able to get other armor sets, or else we have to like delay a patch or an expansion just to get that. So it's not a matter of we don't like throwing money at problems when that's a good solution to those problems, but we're usually thinking about it in terms of when are we actually going to get this patch or expansion out, and you guys are often really impatient, and understandably so, so we have to make hard choices sometimes.
Thank
Thank you.
Hey guys, I was wondering if you could put strength polearms in the game.
So strength polearms have been one of those things that haven't had a niche because they don't work very well with Titan's Grip. You can't use them, and so when we're dropping a strength weapon, we want to make sure that all of those strength classes can use it. That said, going forward, now that hunters are sort of falling out, it's something that we can look at on, a case-by-case basis, and if we get a really cool piece of art that we want to make into a warrior and DK thing, we can do that.
Your panda poster art, he's dual-wielding polearms, so...
Well, the artists can do a lot of things that we can't.
Good answer.
Back in vanilla, you had the Hunter Epic quest line with Rockdalar. I was just wondering if you guys are going to bring that back at all.
So it's something that has actually come up internally. Relatively recently, one of our encounter designers was asking, would it be appropriate to go back and update it? So it's something that is actually something we're thinking about and looking at and considering. We want to make sure that if we do something like that, it actually lives up to the standards that you remember from level 60. And it's not just, we zapped the numbers up and now it's level 85. We want it to truly be up to that level of quality. And so that's why it hasn't yet. We're thinking about it. It might happen, it might not.
It's also worth noting that some of the more recent things that we've done for Dragon Wrath and for the 4-3 Rogue Daggers are very similar in terms of a personal, challenging solo experience. It's a trial that you have to overcome. And it's something that's accessible to players, even if you don't go all the way to the legendary step. Just getting the first step of the way there unlocks a lot of the cool solo gameplay, if that's the overall play style that you're looking for.
Thank you.
Hello. I've noticed that in the past, engineers have gotten to make some pretty cool stuff like wrist rockets and stuff. Well, by today's standards, those items are pretty much worthless pieces of junk. So I was wondering if we'll ever get to make some more powerful versions of those items, or maybe something else that's more fun to use, like, say, freeze ray, or some kind of mount that you can use underwater.
Yes, but one of the difficulties there is engineering devices are often as powerful as class abilities, and so the downside has to be, bad enough to make sure that everybody doesn't switch to engineering, since professions aren't permanent. But we've had a lot of discussions recently, and we are trying to put wackier stuff in, stronger stuff. And it's more going to be about maybe limiting where you can use it, and so we can just say, oh, hey, it's not allowed in PvP or whatever, and so we can go crazy with it. But yeah, we have a pretty cool suite of stuff that we're looking at for engineering this time.
Thank you.
Hi guys, Douglas from Musera. What's up, LMPT? Got a question about hunters. You said you're eliminating the use for the melee weapons. Are we still going to be able to equip them for show for like our legendaries? And also, I have the Sulphurous Hand of Ragnaros and I can't equip it. Any way we can get some mace love?
There aren't any plans for that right now. It seems like a lot of work for something you couldn't equip. That said, the melee equip, we're probably not going to let you do that. So at least right now, we don't have plans to let you equip those things in the past. We might find a way to make a special exemption for stuff that you were actually intended to have, like Thunder Fury.
If it makes you feel better, the rogues that are walking around with the orange legendary bow won't be able to equip that either.
That does make you feel better.
You got it. Thank you.
We do want to have, to change the hunter so that you can see their quiver on their back permanently at all times, and if you have a gun, potentially like an ammo pouch, and then be able to change the art assets on those, to customize them. So it's something we've been talking about.
Hi. Illustrious Grandmaster Engineer Chow, Storm Range 2-time realm. First, I got a question about engineering, kind of a follow-up to him. What happened? I mean, you make it so awesome, so exciting for that one patch, then it's kind of like you just forget about it, and every once in a while you put in that one weapon that I can't use because you're like, oh yeah, engineering's a profession also. But like the goggles, for instance, they are the trademark of engineering, and I was so excited to see those because you could use them for almost every class spec, and you had the cog wheels, but there's no upgrade for each tier. So do you plan on changing that or adding upgrades like that? And,
go ahead and finish. Sorry.
And if your excuse is like all the fun, clever pets, I'd have to argue that archaeology is getting dangerously close to giving me more weapons and more fun pets than engineering.
Well, I would. In answer to the question of what happened is probably so there was the reaction to engineering sucks, which was the explosion of awesomeness. And then there was the reaction to engineering is too good, and so it's been doing a bit of a pendulum swing there. Again, just we really want to nail down our philosophy on that particular trade skill, which is it could be its own class if we let it get away from us. And so we are going to focus on that and make sure it offers a lot of really cool stuff. Sorry, I don't want to give away any examples right now because so many of them require complicated tech that may or may not happen. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of focus on it this time. So your concerns have been heard, and certainly if you guys have anything you really want to see, you should tell us. Get on the forums and make that giant post again. Can't believe I just said that.
I'm not sure how happy I am about that. Thank you.
All right, so first off, thank you very much for that priest talent that lets me swap my health percentage with one of my allies. I look forward to using that to kill my guildmaster many, many times.
Haven't already killed him with Leap of Faith?
What?
You haven't already killed him over and over with Leap of Faith?
Oh, well, yeah, but, I mean, now I have a new way to do it.
I don't think you'll be in your guild for long.
If he was going to kick me for it, he'd have done it by now. So for the actual question, how is monk healing going to work? Because when I was playing over there yesterday, you had chi, which is basically energy. Then you had light and dark power, which is basically holy power. And then looking at the character sheet, it's like intellect, this stat does nothing for you. Spirit, this stat does nothing for you. So is it going to be like I choose the healing spec and I get a mana bar and I start using intellect leather? Or would I heal with agility leather? Or would it be like I use intellect leather but I still have chi and dark and light power? How is that going to work?
It'll probably work where when you go into the healer stance, your key will change to mana, and you'll use mana for your healing spells, and your bar will change, similar to how like a druid does or a warrior. On the question of how will healing work, the two challenges we put for ourselves for the healer monk is let's try to make healing to where they can DPS, similar kind of like the Disc Priest with Atonement, and also what if majority of their healing spells they don't have to target anything? Because traditionally with all healer specs, what you do is you have your grid or whatever, and you're clicking a dude and healing him or whatever. What if the monk was more kind of proximity, like I'm up near the dude and I heal him that way, and it's kind of like maybe it's like kind of like Holy Nova but more single target and a lot stronger. And so the current pitch is that you're incredibly mobile as a healer, and you're in proximity of all the people you're healing, and yeah, you're just zipping around a raid, healing, and then you can also DPS the boss. And you also have this mechanic where you have these statues, and you can pre-place the statues around the raid, and anytime you DPS the boss, the statues emit healing near them. So there's gameplay of like, okay, I want to have my statue, near all the melee or near the range and stuff like that. So we're definitely challenging ourselves to trying to deliver a different type of healer than what we've done before.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Hi, my question is about the level 90 shaman talents. You have a cooldown-based talent in the the elemental harmony, where you can put down 3 fire totems at once. That would be a huge DPS increase. The canceling of totems, that would be great for resto, and
Elemental Harmony probably was not going to apply to fire totems. That was not something that was clarified in the tooltip, precisely for the reason that you indicate, because that's a huge DPS increase. I think the intent there is more to have the flexibility to be able to say, I'm going to have my Earthbind totem and my Tremor totem down at the same time. I'm going to drop Mana Tide while I have my new Healing Tide totem also down, as opposed to just, oh sweet, I can drop like Searing and Fire Elemental and Magma all the time, and that gives X% DPS increase, therefore it's the correct choice anytime an enhancement or elemental. And for the cooldown one, I think that functions essentially as described. I think one of the great frustrations for many shamans with the totem mechanic is either in PvP it gets killed, or in PvE in many situations you need to pick up your totem or replace it before you've gotten the full effect out of it. And this way you can get a bit of a refund on that cost that you've had to pay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, thanks. Great hand.
Hi. So one of the things WoW doesn't have right now is a melee cloth class. And so when you announced yesterday that we were going to have a monk, I was super excited because we would have something new and unique. And I was wondering if there's any discussion about maybe making them a cloth class more true to the monk feel and flavor.
So one of the concerns there is we've had a long-standing problem of having to provide one type of itemization for a single character class, which is the Holy Paladin gear that has to drop, even though essentially we have to drop it more than their actual Holy Paladins to consume it in order to drop sufficiently. And if we were to introduce a cloth melee user who used agility or strength, we would have the same problem again, where we'd have to have a whole new item drop on all our drop tables that would kind of bloat things out a little bit like they were in Burning Crusade, which we really didn't like, and probably you guys didn't really like. So we really want to keep within the existing archetypes of the different types of armor we have. So leather had spirit and intellect on it, and that seemed like the better place to take them on, especially if you're going to have them tank, so we could have them use the agility leather that the druids do. It just fit a lot better with what the monk needed to have, without creating new armor types.
Thank you.
Hi there. With the announcement that everyone is going to be able to name their non-combat pets, is there any chance that our warlocks can name our demons? And Greg, I salute you, sir.
I think the idea with the warlocks, as distinct from the hunter, is that you don't really have a personal demon that's yours. You're just grabbing a demon for your own use from the Twisting Nether, putting it to work for you, and then disposing of it, sacrificing it, getting rid of it. There isn't the same sentimental attachment that hunters have with their pets, and so naming doesn't seem like it's quite as good a fit.
Something we did talk about potentially is sometimes you just get a name for your pet that you just don't like, or whatever. And what we did talk about, Ian's right that we just don't want you to just customize to name your pet John or whatever. But we did talk about where you can go to like a warlock somewhere, and he'd kill your pet and then give you a new pet, and it'd reset the name of what your pet would be. So, and then you just pay gold for that or something. So, yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
Hi guys, thank you so much for 5.0. It looks great, and I'm probably going to get booed, but I know that removing the minimum range for hunters is a great key for us, but removing the melee means that we're going to lose a lot of stats. How are you planning to balance that within the class?
Everybody else loses the same stats in some way. So your current ranged weapon is in a range slot where it has these really gimpy, tiny stat budget, and it's like my ranged weapon has as much stats as your relic. Your ranged weapon is to become a two-handed weapon from the point of view of the item budget. So it's got as much stats on it as the warrior's two-handed sword has. And then everybody loses their range slot. So really, everyone's going to lose a little bit of stats, but you're not going to lose more stats than everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, my name is Critter from Mal'Ganis for the Horde. Quick question. I have 2 retired tunes, one with jewel crafting, one with inscription. And I feel that, when I put the items on the auction house, they're either quickly outbid or some mass producer from an unnamed country is just gonna outpost me like crazy. So I'm asking, can you bring back the old, perfect cuts, the procs, the rare gems that I could put up so I, as a crafter, can feel like a crafter and people buy my goods based on the quality? Because right now I feel like they took my job.
Yeah, I think with the current mods out there, it's a very competitive market, and that's just the nature of an open market. When you talk about perfect gems, if we allowed perfects of blues, then nobody would use the blues. So it just kind of ups the ante on that. I don't know that there's an easy solution to making every crafter feel wanted, other than things like daily cooldowns or whatnot. Things that only you can have. Bind on pickup chaos orbs are another good way. Maybe we should do something like that for jewel crafters this time, so that you can say, hey, I spent X amount of time in the world doing something, and then so you can pay me for that time, and there's a limited quantity of it, so it's very valuable.
Perfect.
Thank you. We've got time for about 1 or 2 more questions. Oh, no.
How you doing, fellas? There's a lot to be said for consistency and longevity, and a lot of us play these games because we love to play with our friends, and you've been doing such a good job for so long that now we're getting to play these games with our kids, so thank you. What I wanted to ask is, I got to play the monk yesterday, and the play of it feels amazing. With the removal of auto attack, I think it makes everything feel really fluid. Can we expect to see this with other classes? And if so, hunters are going to be really confused.
I think removing auto attack on a monk, or the monk not having auto attack, it was really actually controversial around the office too. And there's fans for it, and there's people who think we're eventually gonna cave and give auto attack back. So we're not even 100% sure the monk will do it. And I think removing auto attack on the other classes is really risky because they have they've been playing the class for X number of years, and removing auto attack will just feel like such a huge change. I don't know.
Do the crazy things on new stuff, not old stuff.
One of the downsides of the auto attack that people have found already, the monk lack of auto attack, is if you're about to smack that monkey down or something and he only has 5 health left, you have to wait until you can hit a button again, whereas a warrior rogue would just kill it with their auto attack. So there are some downsides too.
Thank you.
And for everybody that applauded the druid nerf, haters.
No, and I didn't hear that. Smack the monkey. All right. That's it. I think that's it. Guys, thank you very much for your time. Everybody give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Great job.
We are going to be doing a follow-up Q&A on October 27th online. We'll be able to answer a lot more questions about 5.0 and the classes. Thanks.